2 years ago, graphics giant Nvidia caused a wave of outrage when they announced two gaming GPUs that had the same name, but seriously different performance. Thankfully though, they learned their lesson from that response and they never did it again. Sorry. They did do it again. They did it again less than a month later, and they're still doing it today. The only difference is that they're keeping this behavior out of the headlines by doing it on the budget GPUs that the media usually ignores. For example, the RTX 3050 6GB. Did you even notice when this thing was released? I don't blame you. Rather than creating a product guide and sending samples to reviewers for testing, Nvidia announced this thing by writing a short blog post about it like it was 2009. As a result, very few reviews were made and even fewer people watched them. Now you could say, well, Nvidia probably did that because they knew that no one was going to be excited about a relaunch of the same GPU from 2 years ago anyway. But I think they did it that way because they didn't want anyone to notice that it is not the same GPU from 2 years ago. How do they think that this is okay? It isn't okay. And to show you just how not okay it is, we are finally going to be looking not just at the 3050 6GB, but we're also going to be putting a spotlight on the many times in the past that Nvidia has pulled this dirty move, stretching all the way back to the beginning. And we're also going to put a spotlight on our sponsor.
Ugreen. Their Nexo 20,000 milliamp hour 130 watt portable charger is packed to the brim with both power and capacity, meaning your devices can stay powered on and connected for even longer. So check it out at the link down in the description.
If CUDA cores and memory buses don't mean much to you, don't worry, because all you really need to know is that when we compared the new 3050 6GB to the original 8GB model, we found that in both real games and in benchmark apps, there was a big enough difference that a more appropriate name for this new card would have been RTX 3040 or even 3030. This calls into question what even makes a 3050 a 3050 in the first place. It clearly doesn't mean the specifications, and it doesn't even mean the performance. And what's really frustrating for me is that by drawing this comparison to the original 3050, it makes us think, oh, this is a really bad card. But it's not. It's actually the best GPU on the market that doesn't need extra power cables. So if I were, say, upgrading a Dell Optiplex for some serious gaming business, it could actually be a really great option. It just isn't an RTX 3050 option, and calling it that is misleading. All Nvidia had to do to avoid this video ever being made is give it an appropriate name. Let's talk about why they didn't, and fair warning, you might not like what you hear. The thing is, budget GPU shoppers are much less likely to read or watch a review before they click checkout. I know this from my experience working retail, but even if you don't believe me, look at the numbers. The original RTX 3050 got the full launch treatment from Nvidia. And if we look at the Steam hardware survey, we can see that that card sold extremely well, more than the high-end RTX 3080. And yet, the 3050 got fewer views across the board for the media that covered both cards. And that kind of makes sense. I mean, anybody would put the extra research into a $700 purchase, but wouldn't necessarily on a couple $100 purchase. So mainstream shoppers tend to rely more on salespeople at big box stores for help choosing the right product. And if you've ever tried to do that, you know that having someone read the label on the shelf to you is often the best you can hope for. And I don't even blame those sales reps. They're paid to sell things, not to be experts on all of this stuff in their spare time, and there's a lot of stuff that they're expected to sell. So I think that by reusing the RTX 3050's name on an inferior product, Nvidia has made it confusing on purpose. They've created a situation where even a tech-savvy sales rep that is trying could think that, well, hey, as long as you don't need that extra memory, say to game at a higher resolution, this version with less memory should perform the same and save you a buck. And it gets even worse. Even for the folks who attempt to do their own research, by reusing the same name, Nvidia ends up confusing them too. Look at these results on YouTube. Sponsored junk, this is fine. This is also the right card. Sponsored junk, wait. That's a video about the original 3050. So I could search for the exact correct product name, pick the first highly viewed video I see, and I could think the card I'm buying is, I don't know, basically that, but with less memory. Now, If this was the first time it happened, I might say, oh, Nvidia, you made it silly. But as I've already said, this is part of a pattern of shady behavior. Let's pivot to the RTX 3060 8GB, which is another example that happened less than a month after the 4080 12GB scandal. On first glance, this one doesn't seem that bad. Then you notice that when they cut off a third of the memory, they also cut off a third of the memory bus, which slows all of it down. So in both games and benchmark apps, even ones that didn't need the extra video memory, we measured a big performance difference. Now, the saying goes that there's no such thing as a bad product, only a bad price. So this one would have been more okay if Nvidia had also provided a discount, except that they didn't. The cut down RTX 3060 launched at the same MSRP as the full fat card. Why? Well, because it was during the GPU shortage and Nvidia thought they could get away with it. Unfortunately for them, and good for everyone else, the shortage was ending around this time, and regular RTX 3060s soon came back down to their normal pricing, so thankfully there aren't that many of these manufactured e-waste cards out there. Now to be clear, lots of other companies have misleading names for their products. We just finished calling out Nvidia's rival AMD for a similar behavior. But as the leader in the market, I feel that Nvidia has a responsibility to set a good example, to put the bar high, and instead, they've done the opposite. Basically at every turn, basically forever. And this is a real problem with real world consequences for the consumer. I personally have been bamboozled once by Nvidia. I bought an Enforce motherboard for my AMD CPU. This was back in the early 2000s. And a big part of the reason was that it had GeForce 4 graphics. Well, imagine my surprise when I learned that GeForce 4 MX is not in fact GeForce 4. GeForce 4 MX was more like a GeForce 2 than a GeForce 4. Now we're not going to have labs actually benchmark a 20-year-old motherboard to show you the exact differences, because why would we when we can pick out more recent examples? Let's look at the GTX 660 from 12 years ago. This one was a mess, or rather, these two are messes. Both of those cards are called GTX 660, but under their coolers are completely different chips. Plot twist, their performance is not nearly as different this time, less than 10% in Tomb Raider 2013, and we see the same in our benchmark apps. But here's the thing, if I expect 10 donuts and I get 9 donuts and a half-eaten donut, I'm still pretty ticked off. And depending on which GTX 660 you get, it could be even further off than that. On Tech Power Up's list, we found a whopping 4 versions of this GPU, but then none of them matched this card, which has more memory than any of them. And it's hopeless to find a pattern in this. Sometimes Nvidia seems to make an honest effort to match the performance between their dissimilar but same named cards. As we were writing this video, an early sample of an RTX 4070 with just 10 gigs of memory was found. And in this case, Nvidia boosted other specs in order to make up for the lack of memory. And they've done that sort of thing before.
And since, as we're finishing this video, they did it again. And this time, it's both better and worse. A new RTX 4070 just came out with a slightly slower and cheaper GDDR6 memory instead of the GDDR6X the 4070 is supposed to have. Now that's about 95% as fast as the original, so to be fair, it's not too far off. But what makes it bad is that the cards aren't going to have a different label to let you know, hey, you're buying a slower card. Why do these alternate versions of cards exist?
Now the obvious answer is corporate greed, and sometimes Occam's razor does hold true here. But other times, their product strategy is actually pretty reasonable, even if I don't agree with the way they present it. The 660 chip change, for example, was done to salvage higher-end dies that didn't make the cut and otherwise would have been wasted, so they were cut down a bit more and turned into a lower-end product. All right, no problem. But hey, if they were all reasonable and clearly labeled, we wouldn't have had to make this video, and this is where things get ugly. We've complained before about the way Nvidia sells their laptop GPUs. Not only do they use the same names as their desktop counterparts, even though the mobile RTX 4090 is more like a 4080, but there's also the problems of them using much slower memory and a performance limiter based on the cooling and power. a limiter that varies from one laptop design to the next depending on the manufacturer. As we've seen, this limiter can drop performance on these chips by an entire product tier. All of which leaves us with the most important question of all. If the name of the product doesn't mean anything about the GPU you're buying, including the performance, then what the ever-loving bum does it mean? As of 2024, it seems like it just means you pay us this much, and if you're not obsessed with tech news, you'll get, well, whatever you get. Oh hey, I got a message from our sponsor.
Ugreen. Sometimes having your devices plugged into the wall might not be the most convenient thing. Imagine you're at a conference with, let's say, 5,000 people attending. There's no way your phone, laptop, and any other device can stay topped up the whole time. That's where Ugreen can help with their Nexo 20,000 milliamp hour 130 watt power banks. It's got 3 output ports, with the big one able to supply 100 watts of power, charging a 16-inch MacBook Pro by 43% in 30 minutes, according to their testing. It also has a built-in display with useful real-time information like the battery bank's remaining capacity and even the amount of juice it's outputting. Best of all, it's airline safe, so you can take it with you wherever you may be heading next. So go check out this powerful portable power bank pal from Ugreen using our link down below.
If you enjoyed this video, go check out the one we did recently about the confusing nature of these names in the first place, something that the whole industry has been doing a really bad job of because bigger numbers sell better, even if it's not actually better.